Hi everyone, this is Theo Uysal. I'm the Director of New Ventures and Entrepreneurship. And I'd like to thank you all for coming to our Entrepreneurship Center speaker series. This event was organized in collaboration with actually Kutuf, which is the first, I would say, private accelerator in Saudi Arabia. And we have the honor of having the founder and CEO of Kutuf here, Tuba Terekli, and we would like to, especially thank her for making this event happen. In today's event, we are honored to host David McClure, who is an American entrepreneur, venture capitalist, as well as a prominent angel investor. He's done angel investing so much that he's actually institutionalized this by co-founding a global seed fund startup accelerator named 500 Startups, and having invested in literally hundreds of companies worldwide. And we've seen some of his investments earlier today, which were very smart investors and pretty interesting stories that he's backing as an investor. As for today's topic, I think there is some aspects to it that you would relate to. Good number of you are probably academicians, scientists, and you deal with data, matrix, and its analysis on a regular basis. And the same principles to a certain level apply in the startup world, but in the end, what that data needs or those metrics lead to are good decisions to move startup forward and have the company prosper. So in today's discussion, that's really what they will be focusing on. How do you make big decisions and truly material decisions based on the metrics that you gather in the startup world? So we are very much looking forward to this interesting presentation. And please join me in welcoming Dave to the podium.
So I'm going to do a talk for probably about half an hour to 45 minutes and then take some questions. I'm actually very interested in having people interrupt me and ask questions as I go. So please try and be obnoxious and interrupt me and heckle and question the things that I'm presenting to you. Can you do that? You sure? Who thinks they're a really good heckler? Yes? I don't know, you don't seem that good to me right now. All right, so your job is to basically question authority throughout this presentation. Technology. All right, so I have been around the block, and people tend to try and tell you all the wonderful things that they've done. I will tell you that I'm much older than I am rich. It's a sad story. I know a lot of people in Silicon Valley who are much younger and much richer, and they should probably be telling you things because I'm simply up here since they don't get on planes quite as much as I do. But I've been a programmer and database developer. Initially, I was an engineer, and then an entrepreneur. I wouldn't say I was the world's most successful entrepreneur. I had a very, very, very small exit. I was fortunate to work at PayPal for a few years in the early 2001 to 2004 timeframe, so I made a little bit of money there doing marketing, and then worked with several other companies in the Valley as kind of a consultant, advisor, eventually investor. And more recently, I am a venture capitalist, which it sort of pains me to admit that in public. But yes, I am a venture capitalist and I invest in companies, quite a number of them. I run a firm called 500 Startups. We currently have about $80 million under management. We've probably invested about 60 or 65 of that. We originally were just 3 people in Silicon Valley about 3 or 4 years ago, but now we're about 30 people in 6 different countries, and about 10 of us do investments. We've invested in over 500 companies, really about 600, and we've had a few exits, and some of those have actually even been large exits. Our main offices are in California, but we also have a team in Mexico City, and then we have one person each in India, China, Brazil, and Southeast Asia in Kuala Lumpur. And hopefully we might have some folks in Eastern Europe and the Middle East sometime in the next year or two. But we are already investing outside the US. We've done about a quarter to a third of our investments in some form or fashion are in other countries, over 40 countries. And we've done about 6 investments in the region so far, 5 in Jordan, 1 in Turkey, and we're hopefully working on 1 here in Saudi Arabia. So what I want to talk about is this thing called Startup Metrics for Pirates, which is something I started doing about 6 years ago. And there's an acronym called AARRR, which I'll explain in just a minute. There's something else you guys have probably heard of called MVP. Anybody know what MVP is? Yes? Do you want to explain what MVP is?
Minimum viable product.
Okay, that's the acronym that the words stand for. What is it?
That's basically the minimum feature of a product that is ready to release. Could be full of bugs.
How do you know whether it's ready to release or not?
You'll never know until you do.
You never know till you do?
It's just you feel about it, it's ready.
It's how you feel about it. That's your decision process? I think it's ready. Let's try it.
Now, of course, you'll have to get some feedback from users. And
it does help to get feedback from users. Yes, I agree with you.
Yep.
What kind of feedback would be helpful from users? See, I'm heckling him right now.
So basically, just if you have nothing, you just interview, you test your idea.
You test your idea. What kind of testing would you do? You thought this was going to be easy. You're going to come here and listen to me talk. I'm going to grill you.
One of the testings.
Okay, he actually put his hand up. Someone right here, you, the lady right there. How would you design a test to figure out whether your product is ready for the market? Yes, I'm talking to you. You! No, I'm talking to you, right there. Stand up for a second. Stand up for a second. What would be a test to figure out whether my product is ready to bring to the market? Okay, let's say that my test is a plane. When should I bring the plane to market? If that plane has no wings, should I bring it to market?
Once it's ready to fly.
Once it's ready to fly, very good. What would be another test? Well, I think I heard it. What did you say?
Land safely.
Once it's ready to land safely. Good point. A constraint for your plane testing should not just be that it takes off. No, you don't get to sit down right. Come on. What would be another test for that plane? I have a concept, it's called a plane. What's the minimum viable product for a plane that I could bring to market?
Passengers.
You have to test it first if it's passed on the test.
Okay, yeah, but give me one test that you would say is an absolute requirement for a plane. Have you been on a plane? Okay, what happened when you got on the plane?
Take off the ground.
What happened before you got on the plane? Okay, let me ask somebody else. What was that? Check the engines. Okay, very good. There's something I'm thinking of that's very customer focused here. So what's a minimum requirement? Yes, you have a hand up, sort of. People are ready to sit in it? Okay. Something else more specific in the back room? Yes, what? People are ready to buy. There you go. I would present to you that the minimum viable product for a plane is it takes off, it lands safely, and people were ready to buy. Anything else I'm forgetting? Yes, in the back. You know, probably true. Probably true. You could have a minimum viable plane that doesn't actually require people to pay for it, but eventually you'd have to figure out a monetization model. What about a fast bus? Does a fast bus qualify as a plane? Who said it has to fly? Right? If my destination is actually crossable by land, then a fast bus might qualify as a plane. Anyway, I'm going long on this concept, but I wanted to think about, there is a lot of people, when I ask them the question, like, when are you done building? They're like, you're never done building. No, you are done at some point, and that point is when you have satisfied the minimum customer requirements to use that product relative to their expectation in the market. And probably for a plane, that would be it takes off, it lands safely, and they are willing to buy. In some cases, maybe they don't necessarily have to buy, but I tend to focus on revenue a lot. All right, we'll talk a little bit about design and marketing, and we'll talk a little bit about different metrics for winning, not all of which are around getting money, some of which might be around just getting market, some of which might be around being profitable. This is a series of acronyms, some of which you may recognize or not. What do they all have in common? Customer, yes. So most things that I will be involved with tend to have a customer in mind. A lot of people who are entrepreneurs, particularly technology geeks, tend to forget about customers. They tend to focus on algorithms and code and their solutions, and I really don't think that's a good way to think about the world. You should be thinking about the customer and their problems, and we'll kind of walk through a few of these different concepts. The other thing I want to instill upon you in that marketing is not evil. How many of you are engineers or programmers or consider yourselves technical people? Yes, raise your hand high, come on, it's okay, you can be proud. Okay, how many of you consider yourself sales or business or marketing focused people? You guys might want to raise those hands a little lower, actually. Okay, so I started out as an engineer, and when I was first in college and actually in business, I had an extreme level of distrust of sales and marketing people. They were the guys who wore suits. They basically had very high salaries. I wasn't really sure they were doing anything useful. I thought they were lying, evil people who, were a drag on the company. Turns out I was wrong. Well, they might be lying and evil, but they actually had some contribution to the company. And I would suggest to you that if you are a technically focused entrepreneur, one of your biggest challenges is to understand the psychology of your customer and how to reach them impactfully. In fact, I think there's two big pieces for most technical entrepreneurs to understand. One is design and user experience, and the other one is customer psychology and marketing. And your goal with marketing is both qualitative and quantitative. You want to create an emotion that drives some action, and then you want to measure the action. So most of what we're doing when we're building internet software products, whether they're web or mobile or other, is really trying to drive human psychology. And we do that through the use of mostly pictures and text. And in some cases, audio and video now these days. But most of the time, you are looking at a screen that shows you a picture and some text and maybe is trying to get you to click on it. Now, nothing in that picture-text combination and the emotional state that you're trying to drive on the other person is really a technology-focused exercise. In fact, it's very much a not technology and emotionally driven exercise. The thing that's sort of technology is what you actually need to do to get something to happen when they click. And then actually there's a series of results which you might be able to measure. Now, what I want to impress upon you is the great opportunity with doing internet-based products is the feedback loop with your customers is very fast. So unlike maybe manufactured-based products that might have a long cycle time in development and delivery, and maybe it's hard to get the stats from the customer if it's an offline product that you can't test, with online products, you can develop quickly, you can test reactions quickly, and you can make decisions in very short order. So this gives you a unique opportunity when you're developing internet products to make a random series of product decisions and marketing decisions and see whether they're correct or not. Question or heckle? Damn.
Isn't it true that the gap between manufactured products and the feedback that you're getting, isn't that shrinking rapidly?
It is. That's correct. And so a lot of the techniques I'm talking about theoretically can be applied to offline businesses as well. And with the use of video or other type of monitoring statistics, you could actually get reasonably good feedback. Imagine that you had a soccer van that had a live camera system that would allow the manufacturer of that soccer van to test for customer reaction in real time after it's been delivered. Wouldn't that be kind of interesting? You'd probably be a little freaked out that someone was watching you. But what if you gave somebody a $2,000 discount to have a two-way viewing camera in that soccer van for real-time customer feedback? So what I'm trying to press upon you is that a lot of the software development process is really psychological and emotional. How many of you have taken a basic course in human psychology? How many of you have taken a basic course in programming of any kind? Right, almost everyone in the room. How about Photoshop or design? Right. How about business or sales or marketing? And now again, how many in basic human behavioral psychology? Yeah, not very many. Right, so here's the thing is that you're probably overspending your time on programming and underspending your time on human psychology. I bet you didn't expect me to be telling you that you should go back and take psych courses. All right, we'll come back to this, but what I want to impress upon you is that one of your goals as an entrepreneur is to create marketing campaigns, usually based on pictures and text, that drive an emotion in the customer or the user to take an action. That action hopefully creates happiness or productivity for the user and revenue and money for the business. And then you need to measure their reactions, whether they actually complete those steps or not, whether they generate their own happiness or productivity, whether they generate money or revenue for you or not, and then modify your product or your marketing based on the results of the metrics that you collect. You guys get that? No? Yes? Do you understand what I just said? Anybody want to repeat what I just said? Translate that into their own words. The person in yellow standing right there nodding your head, stand up and tell everyone else what your interpretation of what I just said was. If you would, please stand up. Okay. So you were nodding your head as if you understood, but all right. So what I'm trying to help you do is make decisions as an entrepreneur in what products you build and what marketing you come up with, and help you build a metrics framework for collecting data and then making decisions. Yes? You need to collect some other data as well.
With the idea of innovation, how can the customer know if there is a need?
How do you know if there's a customer need or not?
Yeah.
You're correct. That is other data that I would want to collect.
If I want to create a new product,
yeah,
I would expect that it is a major breakthrough.
Okay, I see what your point is. This is, people don't know whether they need it or not. How do you know if you're going to be producing the right features or product for a product that has not really hit the market yet, or that customers may or may not know they need? I'm pretty sure that Steve Jobs didn't really say that, or even if he did say that, he did not mean to say that. I think Apple actually does an incredible amount of behind-the-scenes testing and iteration on their products, even if they don't actually pitch it that way. I think most people think that the iPhone burst from the forehead of Steve Jobs like Athena from the forehead of Zeus, fully formed, and ready to go, and was immediately adopted by hundreds of millions of people and was perfect. Very doubtful. Actually, the product was probably acquired by Apple in development for 3 to 5 years, went through multiple iterations, tens if not hundreds of iterations in testing, with Steve and with other teams and with customers before it became a product in the market. And then after it was in the market, it was probably another 2 or 3 years before they got to 50 to 100 million users that was of scale. I don't know whether they tested with people or with people internally, but I guarantee you that somebody was doing some kind of testing with it incrementally before it got there. So anyway, to answer your question, if you are really building something that's completely innovative, nobody's ever used before, and you have no way of testing that until it is completely finished before you bring it to market, then maybe this methodology will not apply. I challenge you that 99.99999% of most products, this is a useful methodology, and most times, even with innovative products and services, you can test using prototypes. You don't actually have to build the product. In fact, one of the things I'm going to talk about here is you can take a picture and text and create mock-ups, offline or online, and gauge emotional reaction to those concepts as part of your product development process. You do not actually have to build the product before you can get some feedback. Now, I will challenge you probably shouldn't ask users how they feel about it. You should try and devise a test where they are actually using their time or their money to take an action and then measuring their response, not asking them what their potential response would be. That's the difference between survey and analytical monitoring. It's slow, so I'm going to start to speed up here. But the thing that I'm trying to emphasize to you is that your decision process as an entrepreneur is extremely complex. The number of things that you can do is almost infinite. What type of actions should you take as a founder to hire people, to build products, to create marketing? It's almost an infinite array of complexity. And the goal here for this is to find some focus and framework for making decisions in building products, in conducting marketing campaigns, and understanding the results of those product development decisions and marketing campaigns in a way that's relevant to your customers and to your business. A little bit about what's happening in the rest of the market. So you are in a time which I would say is better than ever before. The cost of building software products is dramatically lower than it has been in the past, probably by at least 1, if not 2 orders of magnitude. The ability to reach customers is dramatically greater than ever before. Again, probably not by just 1, but by 2 orders of magnitude. And the availability of education on building technical products is also greater than ever before. Even if you might not always have access to experienced entrepreneurs and mentors physically, you can read about them, you can listen to them, you can even sort of hear interactive sessions with them. This has really happened mostly in the last 10 years. So starting probably in the late 90s to early 2000s, software development costs started dropping a lot. In the last 5 to 10 years, most of the rest of the planet has gotten online in a variety of different products and platforms and services. And just in the last maybe 5 years or so, we've started to build the modern version of what I would call the business school, which is an accelerator or incubator, at least for building technology products. And the benefit to all of this is that you can measure the reactions of customers in real time or close to real time. Right? Why is that helpful? Because I want to develop a feedback loop for building products and creating marketing that becomes more effective over time and hopefully helps me build a viable business, a sustainable business that might not be big, but might at least be able to survive and perhaps thrive over time. So the interesting thing about the internet is not that it's based on technology, it's just an interesting platform that allows you to measure customer reactions, hopefully in close to real time. So all these industry changes that I've been talking about, increased startup efficiency or at least product development efficiency, reduced capital costs for building products and acquiring customers, the growing market opportunities around the world and the growing platforms for reaching those users around the world have made it incredibly easy for people to now build products and get customers, at least in the online world. There have been 2 major industry upheavals for the startup universe, one in 2000, 2001, and another one in 2008. The one in 2008 wasn't really an upheaval that was in the technology market, it was actually in the real estate market, but it had impact for the financing world. And so there's a couple of things that have started to happen in terms of the emergence of what we call seed funds or micro VCs in accelerators, particularly with Y Combinator. And then even with larger venture capital firms like Andreessen Horowitz and online platforms like AngelList. If you're interested in that subject, we run a conference called Pre-Money that also has some video and recordings from a lot of the folks that I just mentioned talking about changes in that industry. So what happened in 2000 and 2001 and then later in 2008 really changed how I think the Valley and hopefully the world thinks about building companies. In fact, prior to 2000, in the mid-90s and late 90s, when there was a lot of perceived success in the Valley and a lot of companies going public, probably with very limited revenue, in some cases no revenue whatsoever, there were a lot of shady things going on in the industry and a lot of very large expenses. So very typically expensive servers, Sun Microsystems, very common, Oracle database development, hosting facilities, all of those things were costing millions of dollars to get off the ground. So your cost of getting a product to market in the first year or two was probably anywhere from $3 to $5 million and up. Your development cycles for building those products were at least 12, sometimes 24 months. Your sales cycles might be long as well. You probably needed at least a seed round and a Series A round, maybe even a Series B round to get to market and to get customers. And the audience for which you would raise that money was fairly limited in a very, very small and specific area in Northern California called Sand Hill Road. And this is what I would call the big fat dinosaur startup era. Sorry if that's a little hard to read. By the way, my slides are terrible and really god-awful ugly, but you'll probably never forget them. So let's contrast that with what happened, say, after 2008, which is after the real estate financial crisis, which also had some impacts in the startup world. So fast forward 10 to 15 years, and now a lot of these services were run in the cloud. They're not expensive, or they're pay-as-you-go, or they're free. We have much shorter cycle time on a lot of software development products, in some cases as short as a weekend, although at least less than a year in many cases. A lot of our sales process is now online and much shorter, and a lot of our cost structure is probably, before we get to market, maybe only an incubator or small seed investment. In some cases, much less than that. But our efficiency in bringing products to market, if not to have large scalable companies, is much greater than ever before. And the sources of capital, even though they're not completely global, again, much more widely dispersed and distributed, even though Northern California is still a center for capital, it's much easier to find capital in many places. So this is quite different, really, in just 10 years. Dramatically lower costs, dramatically greater reach, dramatically easier products to build, a whole layer of plumbing and infrastructure across a variety of different categories, payments, commerce, social, video, all sorts of things that you don't have to build yourself anymore. It can just plug in pieces of other platforms, many of which are free. And I call this the lean little cockroach startup. Because even if you build a crappy product, if you have any amount of customer sensitivity and access to their need, you can probably start making a little bit of money and you might be able to survive. In fact, you don't need large amounts of capital necessarily to build those types of companies. Heckler in the front row, sort of. Depends. They survive nuclear explosions, perhaps. I wouldn't say ready to go to market. I would say minimally functional in market. Yes.
But I'm talking further back from that, is having the idea sit there and be ready to be developed into a product. Like a lot of people want to do lean startup, without investing much into the original idea.
I think there are a lot of people who are worshiping at the church of lean startup without knowing why there is a religion called lean startup. And I think having not gone through a process of building a waterfall sort of method product or going over budget or over time or building a product that no one buys, you don't have the reference point for why lean makes sense. Having gone through that process once or twice, or in some cases, some of us have done that multiple times over and over again, you have an appreciation for maybe making smaller investments of either time or money to learn more about the customer reaction. Most of this is needs-based customer development. And again, there may be innovative breakthrough technology that is based on, I don't know, nanotechnology or, I don't know, fusion-based energy development that is not going to involve customer interaction, but that's not the world that I'm as focused on. So what I'm tending to emphasize is that if you listen to customers, watch their reactions, monitor the reactions, you can make better decisions for most consumer and small business-focused products, particularly ones that are online. Okay, so a lot of people have been talking about the Series A crunch, and that's a bad thing. All these companies getting funded, a bunch of them are going to fail. We're wasting so much money. It's really just terrible that there's this Series A crunch thing going on, and that is a bunch of BS. I think that really what we are saying is that the cost of software development has come down so much, and the availability of the tools has been able to be reached by so many that we have a lot of initial experiments to choose from. And the fact that not all of them get to the finish line or even get to a large amount of funding, that is not a bad thing. In fact, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are learning what the process is about. And I would say that this is at least as good as going to a business school and paying for an MBA. I would liken the MBA experience to be one that's theory-based, right? You read a case study about a business and you hope that you have a transference of understanding about the successful entrepreneur's experience through reading about their successful sort of story. On the other hand, building a product and taking it to market is more like lab. And you don't have to actually succeed to learn. In fact, failing is also learning. So building a product, bringing it to market, and not having success, you will learn some things. You can also learn things working for larger companies. But I think the opportunity to build your own startup and fail provides possibly as much or more learning than reading about someone else's success. And so I don't think that the Series A crunch is a bad thing. Even if the bar has been raised for what it takes to get larger amounts of funding, the opportunity to build a product and attempt to get customers on a budget of maybe $100,000 or less is probably a useful learning exercise and the equivalent of what I would call a feet on the street sort of MBA. And some of those businesses will be successful and some of them might result in larger outcomes. So it's not all bad there as well. But a lot of the ways that we think about sort of investing our time and resources in building companies and as well our dollars as investors is similar to a story called Moneyball. Has anybody ever read the book by Michael Lewis or seen the movie Moneyball? You guys fans at all? No? Really? That's a great book. It's a great book and it's a great movie. And if you guys like Brad Pitt or some of the ladies like Brad Pitt, it's also probably interesting there. But a lot of the ideas about that, we're really taking unseen metrics and applying them to a business in the US. Baseball has been around for hundreds of years. And a team called the Oakland A's, who had a much smaller budget, financial budget than other teams more famous like the Yankees and others, was able to be very successful in the market by understanding the metrics that were actually meaningful in their market and even with a small budget being quite competitive. So as an engineer, you tend to think that if I code more stuff, I will make progress. If I develop specs, produce code based on those specs, get features out the door, identify bugs, solve the bugs, ship more code, ship more features, then I'm making progress, right? It feels like I'm making progress because I'm moving forward in creating this stuff. And this is a mirage. This is an illusion. Progress is not based on you pushing stuff out the door. Progress is made based on your customers' reactions to your product and their increasing usage of those products or their increasing desire and ability to pay for those products. And in fact, removing features might actually increase their happiness and your revenue. As a mathematical exercise, let's suppose that I have X features on a page, on a website page or on a mobile product. What happens to customer conversion when I add a new feature? Give them more time to waste. If my metric is they begin to buy something and I have X features on the page and I add one more, what happens to their conversion rate to buy something? It drops down. This is cognitively dissonant. This is the absolute opposite of your expectation. Your expectation is that you do things that make the product better and you are more successful. And what happens when you do things, customers convert worse on average. If you create features, you create complexity in the mind of the customer. There are more things for them to choose from. Their challenges in making decisions increase, their conversion rate likely goes down. When you do things, customers have a worse experience. Doesn't that sound crazy? I may not want all of these features. Even if I want all of those features, the choice between those features might confuse me making a decision to act on any one of them. What? Sure. Now, right. Absolutely. Exactly. The point is that different users might want different products. Even the same users might want different products under different conditions and under different times. But the challenge is that most times we are doing too many things, and there is no process for us understanding whether customers like products or want to purchase those products relative to other products that you might offer or other competitors might offer. In most cases, you are building too much, you are presenting the user with too many choices, and you are building features that they don't care about that might even contribute negatively to their happiness or to your revenue. Now, I could just stop here and I would say if I really drove this point home, I'm probably unhappy with the outcome of this talk because I have probably given you pause from doing things, right? Most people will get out there and just like, hey, I'm gonna do stuff. I wanna do stuff for my customers. I wanna build products and features because being an entrepreneur is great. And this is awesome and technology is awesome. And actually, you're contributing to the problem. The availability of technology to reach people is actually contributing to their unhappiness and confusion in the market. You are delivering too many features. You are not learning about what they actually want. And you are preventing them from becoming happy and from you making money. Stop doing stuff. Well, that sounds kind of radical. Now, if I'm thoughtful about the product decisions that I make and the marketing I make, maybe, by adding features, I might improve conversion. I might make the user more happy or more productive. I might get more revenue or more profit. How do I know? Yes, in the back. Talk to the customer. What would you say to that customer? Find out what he or she needs, yes. Actually, by the way, more purchasers online are female than male in most cases. What would you ask them? What should you ask them? Okay, I'll make the distinction again. You shouldn't ask them. You should watch them. Because if you ask them, they'll tell you a lie. Or they will guess at their reaction. And what you're really trying to do is actually see their reaction. What if you don't have a product yet? What are you going to do? What if you don't have a product? How do you determine customer need or customer sort of sentiment if you don't have a product yet? Yes? Somebody from Forrester Research produced a big study that said customers are going to spend billions of dollars on big data. Should you go build big data products? What is big data? It's a good marketing campaign. All right, I'm probably going over my time. So let me just not get into lean startup and suggest that it is useful to gather data from customer reactions to products. It is not so useful to ask them what their opinions are. It is much more interesting to watch their reactions, purchasing or use of time to figure out whether what you're building is useful or not. And if you don't have the product, you can build mock-ups of that product, which could be functional or just symbolic, and gauge their emotional reactions as a proxy for actual future behavior. So what I would suggest to you is spend more time understanding human psychology, creating desire or understanding and tapping into desire for products, and then seeing if the combinations of visual and text images that you present drive an action. What you're really trying to understand is, do they need this product? Will they click on something? Will it solve some deep-seated emotional need that they have? And these are very deep-seated emotional needs that we're tapping into. This is like hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and reaction. Fear, flight, need for food, need for sort of shelter, need for human relationships, all these other things which you think you're just like buying a tennis racket, but what you're actually trying to do is kill a competitive interest for access to a mate or to provide for your children. That sounds wild, right? What I'm trying to do when I'm buying a tennis racket is ensure the success of my line. Right? That's kind of weird. Right? So the things that we think about that we are building, not at all actually related to what we are really building. We are trying to tap into evolutionary emotions which have been developed for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And you don't need to build the product to understand that. Okay, one difference about when you're building products versus trying to grow customers. There is a discontinuous step there where you are trying to understand the minimum viable product. What are the features of the plane that I need to build? It must fly. It must land safely. Customers should be willing to pay. Right? So I need to build something that flies, something that lands. I need to create marketing that customers will pay for relative to their awareness of other products in the market. Once I've gotten a plane together, what do I do then? Well, if I want to build a growing business, what I might want to do is grow the market or become more profitable. So I could take two different actions. I could try and get more customers, or I could try and improve the unit economics on what it costs to fly a plane and what the customers are willing to pay me. Those are different things, right? One time I'm building a plane. The other, I'm trying to improve unit economics for operating that plane or trying to get customers to pay more or to get more customers. What? Save money, right. So again, there's this idea that I'm building a feedback loop, so I'm making decisions. I'm trying to create a framework for collecting customer metrics and then using the data from those customer metrics to make decisions about either product development features or marketing campaigns and the reactions of customers to those campaigns. Most of the time, we do not have feedback loops. We have a linear progression of I'm building features, I'm shipping features, I'm debugging code, I'm reporting to my boss that I've shipped features and code, and I'm trying to get salary increases, and I'm not really looking at customers' reactions to those products, and I just keep building features and features and features and features and features. It's line, it's linear, it's not circular. And what I'm doing is I should ship a feature and I should test, did that feature increase a specific metric for my customers? The conversion of percentage of customers that come to my website and give me an email. Did that increase that percentage or not? Step backward, ship another feature or a different color feature or a different placement of that. I put a button there. Now I put that button with a different piece of text. Did that percentage go up or down or not? And I do this step again and again and again until I get customer understanding. What is going on? Why are they pushing that red button more than they're pushing the green button? Why do they push that button when the text says love instead of when it says hate? Why do they push that button when there's a picture of a baby instead of a picture of a child? What is going on? Yes? Create confusion for the testers. Is it the same person? And I'm selling diapers. I've got two different markets, right? One day I'm selling markets to moms with kids. The other one I'm selling to seniors. Different marketing. Might be the same product. Won't that confuse my customers? Won't I look like an idiot? What is your fear? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Has a negative reaction. Okay, so two things. Let's separate this conversation. Mature business and product like Facebook, changing features on a continuous basis, creating negative experience for customers because familiar context has been changed. This thing used to be here that I knew and used. Then they changed something. Now I can't find it there. I don't know where it is. That's a problem. I will agree with you. Separate condition. The condition for most entrepreneurs is I've got no customers. I've got a very immature product. I'm worried about looking bad because I might do something that's seen as irrational by my customer. I might change the page. I might remove a feature that they needed or wanted or paid me for yesterday, and now it's not there anymore. I might try and ship a feature or a product that actually doesn't work, and they may think I'm bad or evil or lying or incompetent as a result of that. And guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In fact, you could ship something and fail or look like an idiot for every day for 2 years, and you know what? 99.999% of your potential market does not know you exist. You are afraid of looking bad for a very, 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 very small number of customers, or possibly your friends or your mom or your parents or your investors. It's sort of acting like you know what you're doing, and you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of them. Or you want to keep this very minuscule percentage of customers that you've just barely started to serve in exchange for not learning versus being in a continuous mode of experimentation and shipping and failure and embarrassment and learning. And that is what most people are uncomfortable with. If you are willing to be embarrassed every day for the next 2 years in exchange for learning to build your business, would you do it? Would you do it? Are you sure? If you were born, exactly. However, if you were born in Japanese society, in Indian society, in British society, and your parents were informed every day that you were doing stupid things and embarrassing them in front of the universe, would you be brave enough to do that? No, you would not. Especially if your parents were in good standing and you had access to a government ministry or finance job. You would not do this. Entrepreneurship is an irrational exercise. It's only for crazy people. There is a science to what is going on here, but most of the times we are not brave enough or crazy enough to actually do this. Again, if you are willing to fail publicly every day for 2 years in order to learn about your product, most of you will not do it. The impact of you failing every day for 2 years to your customers, your minuscule base of customers who potentially someday will be orders of magnitude much bigger, is negligible. Only a first time to make a good impression? Complete wrong. And I would use stronger words if I were not in this location. You can fail every day for a year, and it is a good thing. You will learn something every day for a year if you are brave enough to take that step. What I'm talking about is a framework for you to do that on a regular basis. Launch every day and fail to 100 customers. In a year, you'll be a lot smarter. You might look like an idiot to those customers and to your parents and to your friends. It's your choice. Okay, I'm probably way over time. How much time do I have? Any left? Hurry up, hurry up. Okay, this is something called AARRR. Why is it called AARRR? The idea is I was like trying to put this presentation together, and I was like, acquisition, activation, money. I was like, AARM, ARM. That's not very memorable, right? I was like, pirates, AARRR. That's memorable. I'll come back to this. So, acquisition. Users come to your site or your mobile product from various channels. Activation, they have a happy first experience, or at least a productive first experience. Retention, they come back. Referral, they tell other people. Revenue, you make money. That stands for AARRR or AARRR. And now the thinking here is pirates are kind of a global theme. It's sort of internationally recognized, at least to some extent. And even though you think this is stupid and crazy, you might not forget it. And the peg leg actually works. Hey, I didn't even notice that. I actually am the peg leg now. Now, I started doing these talks in 2007 or 8, and the challenge is most people take this literally and linearly, And that's not actually correct. In fact, the things that you should focus on first are activation and retention. Don't focus on acquisition first. And here's the reason why, is that it's hard to do even two of these things at the same time, much less all three. So figuring out how to create a good product, how to market the product or scale customers, and then how to make money, whether that's revenue or profit. Those are really, exercises in three different vectors. The first one is really the customer need focused exercise, which is what do customers need? Can I build that product or feature relative to competition? And can I get them to use it multiple times? Which is probably a proxy for their happiness and hopefully for your future monetization. Can I build a product that they use twice? Twice is important. One, can they discover the product? I might be building a great product, but if they can't figure it out or they can't discover it, it's not great. Right? I need to have effective marketing campaigns for them to discover the product and then to use the product and maybe even to come back and use it again. If I can get that going, then I proceed to one of the next two exercises. And you don't have to choose market the product next. You could choose make money. In fact, if you don't have capital, you probably need to figure out the unit economics and making money part before you start scaling the product. Otherwise, you'll grow yourselves out of business. But you should be aware of which of these particular three exercises you are trying to solve. And if I think about sort of how my product is being experienced, right? They come to my website, they have an experience on the landing page, they maybe come back, they maybe tell other people they make money. This is sort of the bucket of activities that I could be spending time on, either by building products, changing products, doing marketing, changing marketing. I'm trying to drive reactions in this system. So this may be an imperfect model. This is just something that I came up with like 6 years ago because we were struggling with what decisions we were making in product and marketing. And I really was even struggling with like, how do we decide to make those decisions? Right? Why do we choose to build these features? Why do we choose to do this marketing? How much should we be spending on customer acquisition? Should we be trying to grow customers now or should we be trying to make the product better? Now, I don't always have the answers to that, but what I'm saying is by building a framework of metrics, you can start to have a reasonable decision process where you trade off either making more products or features or doing more marketing or trying to increase the unit economics or trying to grow the customer base. And so I'm going to whip through this last part, but what I want to identify is the framework for thinking for three different types of people in your organization: the founders or the management team, the product managers or development team, and the marketing or sales team. So management, product, and marketing, I would present to you that the job of management is to choose a set of priorities and metrics. A lot of how organizations are driven is by what they measure. And probably they're choosing the customer problem and need, although they may then pass that off to the product management team. On the product management team, their choice is to what features to build, and then how do they measure and iterate. On the sales and marketing team, their job is to acquire customers and, generally speaking, from an investor's perspective, grow. But if you're a sole proprietor, you might be wanting to make sure those customers are profitable. So again, slight difference there. We talked about MVP. What I would suggest to you for MVP is that you are deciding from critical and few and actionable metrics whether you have an MVP. I am building a plane. What are the three metrics that are required to make sure that I'm building a plane? The plane takes off, the plane lands safely, customers give me money. Those might be the three metrics that I'm looking at. What percentage of times does the plane take off? What percentage of the time does the plane land safely? And then, do they actually pay me money? Now, a more informed metric might be, do they pay me money that that generates more revenue than it costs me to operate the plane? Now, that's not very many things. Why did I quit on PayPal? I was having trouble working for a large organization, and it took every ounce of energy to stay the 3 years that I did and vest the stock options that I had. I don't do well in large organizations. I tend to cause trouble and break rules, and it was probably a great success on my part that I didn't get fired before I actually chose to leave. Yeah. Anyway. Yes?
Two-part question. First of all, what is the balance that you think is between product development and go-to-market and marketing and trying to get some
what's the balance between product development and go-to-market or marketing decisions? Vastly think that the marketing side of the equation is not paid enough attention to, and people build too many products and too many features. So in general, I think we're 80-20 product versus marketing. We should probably be the opposite way. At least for technology entrepreneurship, I think that's the case.
Secondly, fear of biting off more than you can chew. For example, if you have a really awesome idea, but probably like 10% of the process of developing
Right.
the idea.
How do you know your idea is awesome?
I think it is. You have to evaluate it.
Yes. I tend not to judge ideas so much. But we place a lot of importance, I think, on the idea and not enough on execution. And I would generally, again, be like, your idea may be awesome, but how do you test for that? The interesting thing is you can actually test a lot about the idea without building the product. The exercises that I mentioned before about doing mock-ups for images and text and presenting the promise of that idea to customers, or at least the marketing implementation, marketing promise of that idea to users. You can get their reactions. You can do a set of search engine marketing campaigns to a landing page and see the click-through rates as a proxy for their interest in your idea.
And what about the fear of maybe someone is just going to steal ideas?
People stealing your ideas, yes, it will happen. They might even steal your idea and make it better. They might steal your idea and help inform the market and increase your customer awareness of your product category. I generally think that people worry way too much about their ideas being stolen and not nearly enough about, do their customers know about their product? And in exchange for the risk of potentially someone stealing my product idea versus my customers finding out about it, I would probably optimize for my customers finding out about it.
Yeah, I have a question here.
Yes.
It's more about investment. What are the top 3 determining factors when you decide to put an investment in a startup?
Top 3. Product market team, probably, and most of that around product. Everybody says team is really important and market is really important, but your ability to see the future on what the market actually is or whether the team can execute is limited. Your ability to test and use the product is quite in your face. I mean, I can see the product, I can maybe use the product, I can maybe test the product, and then existing metrics for the product. So even though I would agree that the team is probably most important, my knowledge of the team is limited from just initial interactions with them. And the market is complete guesswork, and I just care less about that anyway. I think that big VCs distort the need for big market opportunities. I generally try and advise people to bring the market size down, to focus more on very specific customer metrics.
Yeah, actually, VCs usually prefer to see a demo of the product and so on. Don't you think this is very personal? Like if your VC sees who likes the product, actually he's more interested to invest in where it actually needs to be dependent on the market rather than the person who actually comes from that.
That's true. They're making decisions where their own personal reaction to product is, kind of proxying for what they think the market's reaction is going to be. I have a different set of presentations that talk about how to pitch a VC. Most of pitching is really, in my opinion, establishing an emotional interaction with the investor, and usually done through describing the problem, not the solution. Actually, you can be effectively pitching a lot of times just talking about the problem and establish an emotional connection with the investor. And if they like that, or they've had that problem, then you might get the permission to sort of have the discussion about the need. So most of our decision process is functional prototype, team with basic skills in engineering, design, and marketing, or some subset of that, and then very early customer metrics.